Okay, there we go. Cool. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Because Penelope told me I had to get closer to the microphone than Jason and Stuart were. Unfortunately, that would mean I would have to cut myself off at the knees. So, I want to start out by saying that I'm a deviant. And I'm going to do, this is a picture of me now. And I'm going to define deviance. And I personally believe that the sociological definition is a bastardization of what originally was a statistical definition. And at 6'2" and 200 and some odd pounds, I'm way outside the first and second standard deviation for the population. So in that respect, I'm a deviant. This is what I looked like 10 years ago. Well, 20 years ago with the uniform. Okay, and for those who know me, this is probably the first time anybody's ever seen my first name in use. My former first name. A couple of quick concepts that I would like to bring up. Sexual orientation and gender identity are related, but they're different. One of the most common things is that we're all, whether sexual orientation or gender identity, the main discrimination comes from the fact that we don't fit the socially expected norm for gender behavior. Sex is a biological, anatomical factor. Gender identity is your psychological idea of who you are. Gender identity or gender expression is how you express that, clothing, mannerisms, voice. And then sexual orientation is a romantic or erotic response. It's who you are interested in. Gender and gender identity are internal, primarily, and sex and sexual orientation are primarily external, as far as the way they're demonstrated. If you fit on the, this is pretty clever. Let's see. If you fit over here, if you're born female and you identify as a woman and your expression is feminine, you're expected to have a sexual orientation of female or towards men. And vice versa if you're on the other end. However, everybody knows somebody that doesn't fit all the way over on that side or all the way over on this side. And I would be willing to bet that somebody happens to be yourself. Okay? Because there's a continuum of expression as you go through life. Transsexuals are only one form of transgender. Transitioning is a long process that we go through that doesn't have one day or one small short period of time of happening. It's a lifetime experience. It's a journey. Many of us think it's an odyssey, complete with monsters that we have to face. And those of us who are not well off, it's very expensive and we cannot achieve all of the aspects we would like to achieve. Now, here's where I fit on those little scales. I was born male, but ever since I was young, I identified more as a woman than a man. I tried very hard to listen to everybody else around me and be a good little boy, or a good big boy, or a good young man. I played football. I hate football. Hated football from the minute I saw it. But when you happen to be my size and you walk into your freshman year in high school and the football coach sees somebody that's bigger than everybody else on the team, he automatically thinks you're going to be a great football player. By midway through my sophomore year in high school through the football season, the football coach didn't object when I quit. Because what good is a big center when the whole other team can get through that spot on the football field? So, my gender expression now is much more feminine than it was. One exception is my voice. For those who may be interested, hormones can change an awful lot in the male body towards female, but testosterone does its damage when you're young. And the voice is governed by thickened vocal cords, and those don't unthicken with estrogen. Male to female transsexuals or female to male transsexuals rather, when they go on testosterone, they get the voice deepening almost immediately. They get facial hair. That doesn't go away very well with estrogen either. Their body grows more masculine, but for them, it doesn't make the breast go away. It doesn't make the vagina go away. It doesn't change the plummet. It can change some of the muscular characteristics and other things, but those things that grew during puberty don't ungrow. As far as sexual orientation, I used to be in the middle. When I was married, I had 3 children, but every sexual encounter my ex-wife and I had was she started. I didn't have much interest in sex. Recently, I've discovered that I really think that men are very attractive. That has to do more with my becoming more comfortable with myself and finding that I do actually have an interest in sex, which I suppressed as when I was younger because I didn't know what else to do. Now, the question is, you don't have to answer this publicly, but as you look at this, on each of those items, where do you fall? I'm willing to bet that nobody's going to say they're all the way over on this side or all the way over on this side. Okay. Within the transgender community, there's a number of risks and disparities that we face. Health care and health is a major one. Gender identity disorder is listed in the DSM-IV text revision as a mental disorder. It is listed in the DSM-IV as being curable by medical intervention. It is, in fact, the only thing in the DSM-IV that has a medical cure for it. But gender identity disorder is specifically excluded by all of the federal health programs and the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's excluded by almost all insurances, and if you're a small company under a certain number of employees, you can't even ask for it, not unless you want to pay an exorbitant rate. Interestingly enough, those large companies that do have a transgender health care, including surgery, in their benefits package, have discovered that it doesn't increase the cost per employee on paying. Those that started it did charge it an additional amount for the first couple of years and ended up putting that back into their health care plan and taking out the surcharge. We face bias by providers. There are a lot of medical providers that think that there's something wrong with us and so they don't want to deal with us. And ignorance. In most psychology curriculums for most schools, the textbook will have about 3 or 4 pages based on 1960s information. And that's usually in upper level courses. In medical courses, the University of Arizona is one of the only colleges in the United States that even discusses transgender medicine. And yet, we are more prevalent in society. There are more transgender people than there are people with autism. Based on 1960s numbers. The numbers that Jason is looking at, the numbers that I see that that have not been published but are more estimates, indicate 1 in 100 to 1 in 200 people are transgender in some way.